Hello, welcome to Larter Oasis, a 10-acre smallholding in the east of England.
10 acres that is slowly being rewilded and will eventually be left to a local wildlife trust, providing a home for nature and wildlife in perpetuity.
I can see you in the meadow, holding out your hand. And will you meet me there tomorrow, where the sunlight never sets? 'Cause I'll love you in the end, the corners of the earth, where it starts to bend.
The weather for 2024 produced a wet winter, a warm but very, very wet spring, and a cooler than average summer, but the summer was dry. As every year, the seasons bring nature's winners and losers, and this video covers Larter Oasis winners and losers for 2024, and the highs and the lows. It is based upon our experiences throughout 2024. Apart from a couple of holidays a year, we are here every single day. But we can only talk for the local area, and that's what this video it covers. Swallows turned up, 3 pairs. They repaired their nest, but the aerial insects weren't about, so they couldn't feed, so they all left. And they did come back later, but they never did make any more breeding attempts. So they lost out in the spring and the summer. Likewise, the cooperative breeders long-tailed tits. We never saw any youngsters about, and nor any breeding activity. So again, they lost out this year. Butterflies, just didn't see them early on in the spring or early part of the summer, just the odd 1 or 2. But apart from that, we just didn't see them. Likewise, bees. Quite often when I'm walking amongst all the clover over there, there's just swarms and swarms of bees everywhere. But this year, there weren't any. And so again, early part of the season, spring and early part of the summer, the bees really did lose out. The same has to be said for insects. The insects just weren't about in the spring. I didn't see as many, nowhere near as many. And likewise, later on in the year, I'd have to say the fruit that lost out would be the quinces and the apples. They just didn't have a good crop this year. The winners in 2024 were definitely the flowers, as you can see here, the buttercups, the daisies. They had a fantastic year. So did the oxeye daisies. They had a wonderful time. Likewise, the orchids, the common spotted orchids, they had a good time. And for us, first time ever in Larter Oasis, bee orchids. I think we had about, I can't remember, it was 5 or 6 came up now, but it was wonderful to see it, first time ever. Thrushes, they had a good time. The ground was so wet, it was easy to pull up the grubs and the worms. So we saw lots of young blackbirds, and likewise we saw lots of breeding attempts with missile thrushes and song thrushes, and lots of their young. In fact, we had more young, and we still got them calling around on the Larter Oasis now, so it's been a good year for thrushes. They did benefit. Likewise, robins. Robins did well. They've had several broods this year. Likewise, the blue tits and the great tits. We didn't expect it because the insects weren't about, but we do have feeders here, and at home, and maybe they took advantage. So we're seeing lots and lots of activity along blue tits and grey tits, and wrens. Wrens don't really use the feeders, but they do sometimes feed underneath the feeders, and they did well. So did the goldcrests. We've had 2 pairs of goldcrests, and one of the pairs I know had at least 2 breeding attempts. So the goldcrest did well. Grey spotted woodpeckers and the green woodpeckers, they've done well. Seen lots of their youngsters about, and they've been calling and been very active on site throughout 2024. So they've done well. Pheasants, there was a pheasant farm down the road. We just seem to get inundated with them, which is nice to see the pheasants about, but it's not good for our native grey partridges. Jays, they did well. They've had lots of youngsters. Likewise, stock doves. Stock doves have been very, very vocal. We've seen lots of youngsters. The sparrowhawks, this one here, the female sparrowhawks, she's done her best to keep the wood pigeon numbers down. But the wood pigeons, as always, are able to breed any time of the year if the conditions are right. Goldfinches, we've had lots and lots of goldfinch activity. They've been successful. We've seen lots and lots of youngsters about. So for them, here is a pool part of your goldfinches now. Look, there's some youngsters amongst them. So the goldfinches had a good time. Greenfinches, likewise, in the past few years we haven't seen many greenfinches, but this year we've seen quite a few, and there's some youngsters as well. So the greenfinches have done well, and we're pleased about that. Here's a dunnock. Dunnocks have been very vocal all year, and they had good breeding attempts and brought off many youngsters. Likewise, we've had house sparrows, first time ever here on the site, but there's been a small flock of house sparrows and they've hung around, and they did well and bred off quite a few youngsters. So did the bullfinches. We've seen quite a few bullfinches on the wildlife cameras, lots of youngsters, so they've done well. If you like, our migrants, the whitethroats, they did well. They were breeding here. Here's a tawny owl. The tawny owls did well. This one, unfortunately, caught a newt from the water source. I guess the owls do well here. We see barn owls, tawny owls, little owls quite frequently. Sometimes a shortly owl. The vol numbers are quite high here. Later on in the summer, some butterflies show, the meadow brown and the red admirals, they show quite well, and we had lots of dragonflies towards the back end of summer as well. Frogs, we saw quite a bit of frog activity. We didn't see any spawn, but we did see them in the meadows. And the muntjac, they did extremely well, don't they always? But there's no complaints. It's not their fault they're here. So when we plant up, we tend to plant more than we need because we know they're going to have some damage from the muntjac. What you just saw there was the Chinese water deer. There's one of them moved in recently, and the roe deer, or native roe deer, they did well this year. They had a few youngsters. Here's a male roe deer. You can see they can jump over the fences quite easily, but down the bottom there in that wood, I have removed all the fencing because though they could probably jump over, it's quite a thick hedgerow there, so we've removed all the fencing now, and they can come and go as they please. Here's a little wood mouse, a young wood mouse. He's been a bit too early for my liking. Maybe they had a raid on the nest. Here's a polecat ferret. We've got one of them in the area. And the badgers tended to do quite well this year as well. They were always active and always about. It was a wet start to the season, so they had trouble getting the grasses and leaves and mosses for their bedding, any dry stuff, so they did raid our straw supply in the barn. As you can see here, they had great time. The straw, we didn't really mind. We'd much rather them have it. They were suffering. They needed some dry bedding, and they had to take it a long way. So hats off to them. They worked for it, so they're welcome to it. It was easy for me. I just phoned the farmer. He needed to deliver some more. We had a young fox move in, dug out an earth on the Larter Oasis, and he still is there at the moment. I don't know if it's a male or female, but they're still there. Fruit-wise, we had poor quince and apple, but we did have a good crop of plums. The turtle doves, they did turn up, but they turned up late, so I don't know. I'll put a question mark against winners. Did they do well? I don't know. They turned up 3 months late, so it was good that they turned up, but whether they actually bred or not, I don't know. They did hang around, but whether they bred, I'm not sure. But my question mark is, why were they 3 months late? As mentioned in the loser section, one of the biggest lugs for us this year was the lack of swallow activity. We look forward to hearing the youngsters calling out for them when the parents come back to feed them, but we didn't hear them. Yellowhammers, likewise, we did hear them, but not until the end of the summer, and not in the numbers we normally hear them. Never heard a cuckoo this year, not one. That was a big low. Likewise, we never saw any painted lady butterflies, the migrants, never saw one. And we've seen for the last few years, every year we've seen hummingbird, hawk moth, but this year not one. Another low for 2024 would be the lack of bees. We saw a few towards the end of summer, but we didn't really see the numbers that we normally see. We see a lot here at Larter Oasis, but this year they were conspicuous in their absence. It's a big shame. Likewise, it was a shame we didn't see that many insects. We saw a few again towards the end of summer, but not as many as we normally see. Another low would be the lack of hares. We normally see quite a few hares at Larter Oasis and in the area, but this year not very many at all. I'm going to put a low down for the turtle doves, though they turned up. Turning up 3 months late, that was a low for us, and very disappointed that we had to wait that long to hear them. It raises the question, why were they so late? Another big low is we had a fox turn up dead on the Larter Oasis. It was been in collision with the car by the looks of it. Its face on one side and its shoulder was all smashed in. I think its adrenaline got it as far as the orchard, and that's where it collapsed. Its injuries took its life. It wasn't the youngster that moved in this year. I think if you look closely at this clip, it's the adult that passed through and just sniffed his earth, so maybe it's his mother or father. A big low for 2024 was losing our beloved Goatee. She was old, she was 16 years of age, she was never going to last forever, but she became a sort of kind of fixture on the Larter Oasis, and we do miss her terribly, even though, as I've said many times before, she was a right royal pain in the arse. But that was a big low, and even Willow will go and stand by the ark that Goatee had adopted. She sometimes goes over there and stands by there now.
There's a line from me to you, and it goes back in time to before we knew anything, holding us together. It's holding us together.
They were the lows for 2024. Some of the highs for 2024 would include snowberries. We really put them in 2023, but they produced a good crop. Hopefully the field fairs will take advantage of those. And as I said before, the blue tits and the great tits, they had a good breeding year. Good to see the willow warblers again. They had a good breeding attempt. We had youngsters come down to the water source. They were absent in 2023, but they stayed all summer for 2024, so that was good. Likewise, the lesser white throats, they were about all summer. Also heard the spotted flycatcher just about all summer, on and off. Again, it was a first for Larter Oasis for many years. The dung beetles, they did well, probably because we haven't had to worm our horses now for well over a decade plus. So it was always good to see them when I'm picking up the poo. I'm always really careful and very aware that they're about. The tree bumblebees, they also had a good year despite all the other bee species being absent for most of the summer, but the tree bumblebees did well. Likewise, towards the end of summer we heard and saw plenty of grasshoppers. We saw a pair of kestrels all summer. We're not too sure where they bred, but they were about. It was good to see them. They've been absent for a couple of years, so they've made a bit of a comeback. Red kites, they've done well all around the country now. They're expanding the range, but we've been seeing them more regular here. Probably as much as we see the buzzards. And Montagu's Harry was also seen on and off. Again, not too sure if it bred, but it was good to see it. Pair of birds we do know that bred in the area were marsh harriers. Here's a male marsh harrier quartering up and down on the western boundary of Larter Oasis, but male and female were seen regularly, and we do know there's a breeding attempt about a mile away, but how successful it was I'm not too sure. Likewise, at the beginning of winter, we heard a couple of ravens and we saw a couple of ravens, and we have heard them on and off all winter. And in fact, Sharon saw one of them in our paddock only about a month ago, just before Christmas. There's also been a herd of red deer in the area. I think there's about 26, 27 with a magnificent male amongst them. So again, that'd be nice if they turned up one of these days. Another high would have been obviously the common spotted orchids and the bee orchids. They've done really well this year, as well as other wildflowers. I've been appearing in everything really, highs, lows, winners and so on, but it was a high just to hear them.
That was a brief roundup of Larter Oasis for 2024. We're now in January, the middle of winter, but again we don't mind winter. It brings a different kind of nature. The plants and the trees are having a bit of a rest, and we're visited by birds from afar, such as fieldfares, redwings, bramblings, siskins and the like. Even some of the more common species that you see every day in the UK, some of them are from abroad. They're joined by their cousins abroad, such as starlings, blackbirds, song thrushes, grey spotted woodpeckers, goldcrests, woodcock, and plenty of others, but that's a video for another day perhaps. Right on cue, I do believe I can hear some pink-footed geese. They're a little far away over to my left, but I can hear their squeaky honks and they seem to be coming this way.
Oh, 'cause I love you when it rains. All the shadows and the pain will never be the same.
Thanks for watching.
Take care.
Bye for now.
Bye.